The roof started leaking in February. At first, it was just water stains spreading across the upstairs hallway ceiling in my aunt's house. Then part of the drywall sagged after a week of rain, and suddenly every family conversation became urgent: contractors, insurance deductibles, temporary financing. I transferred $10,300 3 days later. Nobody asked directly. That's what made it complicated. My mother mentioned the estimate during a phone call and sighed in that specific way she used whenever she wanted help without requesting it outright. We're all trying to keep the house together, she'd said, so I wired the money into the renovation account connected to the project manager handling repairs. Afterward, my uncle texted, "Appreciate you stepping up." That was it. Still, I let myself feel strangely hopeful. Families rarely transform overnight, but sometimes usefulness creates temporary warmth, more calls, more updates. Photos of roofing materials sent into group chats I usually wasn't included in. For a few weeks, I mistook access for closeness. Then my cousin called on a Thursday evening while I was leaving work. At first, she sounded distracted, asking whether I knew a good moving company because furniture would need rearranging before the housewarming party. "The housewarming?" I asked. A pause long enough. "Oh," she said quietly. "I thought someone told you." Traffic moved around me while I stood beside a parking meter, staring at nothing. "Told me what?" Another pause. "By the way, you're not invited." "It's mostly close family," she said it casually, almost apologetically, like explaining limited seating at a wedding. I laughed once because my body didn't know what else to do. "Got it." When I got home, my mother had already left a voicemail. "You'll understand someday," she said softly. "These things are complicated." That sentence stayed with me longer than the exclusion itself complicated. As if emotional distance were an administrative category, I sat at my kitchen table that night thinking about every crisis I'd been invited into over the years. Hospital visits, late-night loans, insurance calls, property paperwork, but birthdays, vacations, celebrations, those somehow required a different level of belonging. I opened my laptop around midnight. The renovation account connected to contractor disbursements still listed me as secondary authorization because the project manager required additional financial assurance after earlier delays. The mortgage restructuring application also still carried my supplemental support documents from when refinancing became necessary the previous year. I stared at the screen for a long time before doing anything. Part of me understood exactly how this would look: petty, punitive, transactional. Another part of me wondered whether I had already spent years participating in a transaction without admitting it aloud. By 1:30 a.m., I had frozen the renovation disbursement account pending review and submitted formal withdrawal notices from the mortgage support structure. No dramatic messages, no speeches, just forms. I slept badly afterward. At 6:12 the next morning, my phone started vibrating. By 8 o'clock, there were 42 missed calls: my cousin, my uncle. Unknown numbers. My mother repeatedly. The voicemail from the contractor came first. "Funding authorization has been paused. We can't continue work until the lender clears the updated conditions." The second voicemail was my uncle swearing under his breath. By 10, they were outside my apartment building. I heard them before I saw them. Raised voices echoing through the intercom speaker downstairs. My mother sounded frightened more than angry. "Please come down." I almost ignored them. Instead, I printed the lender correspondence, the contractor suspension notice, and the mortgage revision documents. Then I rode the elevator down, carrying everything in a thin blue folder. When I opened the lobby door, nobody looked prepared for how calm I was. My cousin crossed her arms immediately. "So you're seriously doing this because of a party?" I handed the folder to my uncle instead of answering. He flipped through the pages slowly while everyone else talked over each other. The lender required reassessment after support withdrawal. The renovation funds could not be released without revised guarantees. The roof work had stopped at 7:45 that morning. Nobody yelled once they understood. That was the strange part. Reality entered the conversation and drained all the drama out of it. My mother sat heavily onto the lobby bench halfway through reading the documents. "I didn't realize your name was attached to all this." I looked at her for a moment. That's kind of the point. Silence settled after that, not victorious silence, just uncomfortable recognition. Outside, rainwater dripped steadily from the edge of the building awning. My cousin finally spoke again, quieter this time. "You could told us this mattered to you." I almost answered immediately, then stopped. Because the truth was harder to organize cleanly. Part of me had genuinely wanted to help. Another part had quietly hoped that being reliable long enough would eventually turn into being included naturally. Neither thing had fully happened. The roof repairs resumed 2 months later under reduced renovation plans and a different financing arrangement. My name disappeared from the mortgage completely. In September, my mother sent me a message about another family gathering. "You can come if you want." I stared at it for several minutes without replying, not because I was angry anymore, because once you notice the difference between being needed and being welcomed, it becomes difficult to confuse the two again.